The House passes its budget bill while the Senate endorses an Excellent Schools Act. And a bill to allow live card dealing at the Cherokee Casino receives scrutiny. The stories next.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Hello again, I'm Kelly McCullen. Thank you so much for watching. We'll top this week's show by discussing the House budget bill that cleared the full House late Wednesday evening. The overall plan increases state spending for the next fiscal year. It also plugs holes for Medicaid and for some teaching positions under threat due to expiring federal funds. The budget also redirects state funds within the budget to lessen other cuts. The State House passed its $20 billion 2012-2013 state budget bill this week. Some of the highlights include a $250 bonus and 5 days vacation for all state employees. It does not include new taxes of any sort. A Medicaid funding shortfall is filled and education funding is boosted.
But the budget does add additional $250 million to K through 12. And might I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, these were dollars that a few years back, when federal dollars came into the state, were supplanted. This assembly had taken federal dollars, put into K through 12, and took an equal amount out.
The move saves teaching jobs funded by that temporary federal money. House Democrats say a $300 million boost does not increase the state's investment in education, only holds steady the cuts made in 2011. The Democrats say Republicans need to commit to the state's children.
This budget does little or nothing to hire back the thousands of teachers and teachers' assistants who were laid off by the devastating budget of last year. Does not put one extra textbook in our classrooms, does not provide a pencil more for any of our students who are still being crammed into larger and larger classes.
Republicans say Democratic opposition to the budget bill must mean Democrats support less public education spending and a smaller budget.
This budget, compared to last year, is $300 million more. So anyone who was opposing this budget hasn't, unless his priority was to have a lower budget, should be happy with it.
But Democratic Representative Becky Carney says there are a few questions over just how Republican leaders found that extra revenue in the absence of a new sales tax favored by many Democrats, including Governor Bev Perdue.
What we have to come out of this budget, the message either side, is a clear message to the people that they understand where the money's coming from and where it's being spent. You know, there's a lot of debate on where, you know what I'm talking about, where they found the money and found the money. Where are you getting your money from?
Representative Nelson Dollar, a Republican from Wake County, is a full chair of the Appropriations Committee. Thanks for being on. How different is this budget, 2012-13, from the 2011 budget that earned so many headlines when you passed it?
Well, of course, what we're doing this year is making adjustments to that budget, and what we have done is we have focused on those areas that are most important. We have put additional dollars, over $300 million more dollars into education. What we are looking to do is to keep those 5,400 jobs that are out there around the state that are currently being paid by one-time federal money. In the past, they were paid for with state money. Now we are restoring state money to keep those positions in place for the upcoming school year. We also put additional money into health care to make sure that we keep our Medicaid program strong, and we also work to keep our public safety program strong and the other key elements of our state government's operations.
Why has it been such a mystery for those who've watched this budget process of where the extra revenue came from? We knew about $250 million would come in from improved economy and sales tax revenue. But Medicaid eats that because you have to plug a hole there to make sure doctors get paid. $300 million more for education. People like education spending. Where did you find it? Are you shuffling money within the deck, or is there that much new revenue coming in you're projecting?
Well, it's not that much new revenue, but what we believe is important to set priorities. And we have been saying that from the very beginning as Republicans, that setting priorities is important, and you can fund the most important needs of the state with the dollars that we have if you set priorities. We said from the very beginning we would not raise taxes. It's the wrong time to raise taxes. Our opponents want to raise maybe up to $1 billion worth of taxes. We don't believe that we should balance the budget on the backs of the working families of this state. We believe that just like every working family in North Carolina, we have to live within our means and prioritize the state's budget.
With so much talk on that school funding, and everyone says schools, you think K through 12, with this budget, would you declare that public school funding in North Carolina is currently healthy? Are schools in good shape, or are you still working?
Well, I think we're still working on some issues. What started under the Democrat leadership before us was what's called management flexibility, or what amounts to a negative reserve. In other words, you say that you're paying for all the positions, and then you're pulling that money back. A very deep hole was dug by that process. Federal money filled it for a time. The federal money is going away. And what we are in the process of is use with the resources we have to fill that hole. Eventually we want to get out of the whole business of having negative reserves, because it'll be much easier for us as a state to implement fundamental education reform in North Carolina that's very much needed if we can get rid of those negative reserves. And unfortunately, with this economy, it's still going to take us another year or two to accomplish that.
On the Medicaid side of things, it always seems on a basic level, Medicaid seems to run out of money a few months before the budget year ends, and it happens quite a bit. Is it growing that fast, or did you miscalculate in last year's budget, have to come in and do a fix for this year and get things ready for the next budget year?
Well, you have to realize that the shortfall that was there, which we have provided money for, was made up, over $80 million of that were abuses of the past that had to be paid for. It was not budgeted by the governor in her budget. It didn't come out of the regular state budget. We had another $28 million in federal obligations on what's called drug rebates, where the federal government made a change. Every state had to eat an additional amount of money. The federal government has also taken months and months and months, over a year in certain cases, to approve what are called state plan amendments, changes to our Medicaid program. It would be much easier for North Carolina to manage our Medicaid program if the federal government didn't gave us the actual leeway to do that. But we can't even make small changes that would actually save and have a better program without waiting months and months and months for federal approval. So all of those factors have played into that. We do believe that we now have most of our state plan amendments in Medicaid have finally been approved by the federal government. That will help us this coming year have achieved greater stability in the program.
Representative Dollar, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
The K through 12 education budget preserves teaching jobs currently funded by that federal stimulus money. The residential schools that serve deaf and blind students were refunded mostly after facing defunding in the current budget for 2012-2013. The community colleges would receive $10 million for worker retraining and see spending cuts reduced by 5%, leaving local campuses statewide to reduce spending by about $83 million. The university system would receive $3 million for faculty recruiting and retention. UNC hospitals would lose 100% of its remaining state subsidy, a $44 million reduction. Endowments that offer full academic scholarships to out-of-state students would be charged out-of-state tuition rates, a $6 million savings. UNC-TV receives a $1.5 million budget cut for 2012-2013 in its state appropriation, giving the network $2.7 million in state budget cuts for 2011 through 2013. Cumberland County Representative Rick Glazier, you keep your eye on the education side of this budget. You're saying they stopped the bleeding, but the patient, which are the schools and the university, isn't getting better. But do voters buying that when they see no cut? Is that a check mark for the Republicans?
Well, I mean, I think that's the issue that has to be played out in the public now. I think the public clearly got it last year that there were serious cuts to the university and public schools, and they didn't like it. And I think the Republicans, reading the same polls that we read, have tried to backtrack and fill in some gaps this year. But the end result about this budget is they cut 5,000 education jobs last year conservatively. Not a single one of them is being replaced by this budget. All they did is not make a terrible budget even worse. And in the era that we're in, standing still in public education, standing still at the university level is moving backwards when the rest of the nation's moving forward.
When you say standing still, are you saying that the progress is made through greater spending on the education? Because that's the classic argument you guys go up there and argue over. Money versus accountability, and money doesn't matter.
Well, and I think that's the problem, is that both sides have failed to recognize that reform without resources is illusory, but so is it in reverse. And it has got to take both. That is, to move forward, you've got to have resources. You can't end up spending 42nd in the nation to 48th in the nation, depending on who you're looking at, with only a few states spending less, and expect to be competitive. By the same token, if all you're doing is placing it in the same programs or in the same way that you've always done it, which hasn't gotten you out of mediocrity, don't expect to do it that way. So I think it's got to be a combination. The problem in this budget is there's no balance. We can't cut our way out of a recession. We can't tax our way out. There has to be a balanced approach, which I think the Democrats did in 2009 and 10, and it's what was lacking last year. And the biggest argument that we had is that the budget attempts to do everything by cut. And that is not the answer when you're cutting thousands of teacher jobs, you're not paying teachers and state employees, and the morale is going really down the tubes. You have to recognize sort of the reality and begin to deal with your people problems and begin to deal with the quality issues that cuts have. And I think the second problem you have to have is a recognition that everybody can sacrifice and should for a year, even a 2-year period, but there has to be light at the end of the tunnel, that things are going to get better. 4 and 5 years down the road, when you're still talking the same thing, ends up meaning that a lot of professionals are getting out of the field, and I think that's dramatically affecting quality.
When you talk about cuts only in order to meet your goals, the alternative is increasing revenue. You can do it through economic growth at current taxation rates, or you can place new taxes in. I noticed in a press conference on Wednesday, Speaker Hackney really didn't want to say the word tax increases. It seemed like the reporters were asking, well, what other alternatives are out there? And no one would say, we want a sales tax.
Well, I think there are alternatives out there, and I think it's a good question in this sense. There are multiple approaches to finding additional revenue to deal with investments, and all budget items aren't the same. So apparently the Republicans have found money and put it in this budget to allow private school vouchers for people across the board under Representative Stam's bill. They found money for a $13 million new program for AP testing based on a Florida model, when 52% of the kids in Florida failed the reading test last week, and nearly 2/3 failed the writing test before they rescored it. That's not the model I want to follow, but they found $13 million for that. Senator Berger's argued that he can find easily $44 million a year over a period of time for his reform, which really does not do much to improve public education. And so apparently we have places that we can go, but only for the programs and the initiatives that the majority wants. Well, if we spend as much time putting that money into teaching positions and salary for good professionals and professional development and really working through and talking with our communities, we'd probably do a whole lot more good than all these new initiatives combined.
Is the problem the level of spending at just over $20 billion? The pie isn't big enough to do what you say Republicans want to do and what you definitely would do with state spending?
I think it's a mixture. I mean, I think over time the pie isn't big enough, and I agree with that. But within the context of where we are now, I think it's also a question of priorities within what you have and where you're putting it. And so, again, if you can find the money for the AP testing and you can find the money for new reforms that don't appear to have any serious evidence-based backing for them, I think we can find it for the things that we do know make a difference, which is maintaining quality personnel in the classroom. And apparently that's not a priority right now in terms of at least the salary side of things and the positional side of things.
Representative Glazer, thank you so much for talking this budget with us.
Thanks so much.
The current Health and Human Services budget contains a deficit in Medicaid spending. The House budget offers over $200 million to pay the medical professionals who serve Medicaid patients. 50 vacant jobs are eliminated in the House budget plan. Smart Start funds would be reduced by $4 million, but that's because federal block grant funding would replace that state money. North Carolina's pre-K program receives a $15 million boost, enough to serve an additional 1,700 students. Staying in the House, the eugenics compensation bill is moving towards a final House vote. This bill, and it's not talked about much, but it creates an agency to help eugenics program victims receive their payments. A new change in the bill will guarantee that that bureaucracy will disband once the claim deadline passes in a few years. Surviving victims of forced sterilization would receive $50,000 tax-free dollars. The bill appears to face smooth sailing in the House, with the Senate appearing to be more cautious about it. We asked Representative Earlene Parman about that.
What we've done with the sunset is to ensure that the administration does not stay in place after the last person can file in December.
Some words out of the Senate suggest this bill may not have the votes in that chamber at present moment. Are you aware of that, or what challenge do you face getting this through the House and getting it through the Senate as well?
Well, I'm aware that everybody in the Senate may not be on board, but I understand that the leadership is working with their caucus and members to explain to them the bill and to get support for it. So I'm going to remain optimistic, because I would think that any elected official will want to do the right thing by its citizens in North Carolina.
There could be up to 1,500 eugenics program victims still alive. It is anyone's guess how many would actually step forward to receive compensation from the state. The Senate has approved making school kids' lunch boxes off limits to the so-called state lunch police. North Carolina made national headlines earlier when a state inspector ruled a kid's turkey sandwich they'd brought for lunch was insufficiently nutritious and made the kid buy a school lunch plate with chicken nuggets. Well, this bill targets that, forbidding the nutritional inspection of parentally packed school lunches. Parents could also opt out of food programs being offered by child care facilities. A Republican Senate leader is calling the Excellent Schools Act a train that's moving. It did move this week, passing a major Senate procedural vote. The bill's designed to focus on kindergarten through third grade reading proficiency while holding teachers accountable for classroom results. Democrats began weighing in this week, saying this legislation will punish school teachers and does not give pre-K programs enough credit. The Senate moved quickly this week on school reform legislation that's being backed by the Senate's Republican leadership. It would require elementary schools to focus on kindergarten through third grade reading proficiency, end social promotions of students who are not meeting proficiency requirements, and allow teachers to be dismissed for ineffectiveness.
We're playing politics with kids' education. And that's what we're trying to get away from. We're trying to give them a sound foundation to move forward. Now, we can sit around here and nitpick this damn thing all day long. But we know the train's moving, and either we get on or we lay in front of it.
The legislation would define as a state goal to ensure every student read at or above grade level by the end of third grade. Students who cannot read at grade level at that time would be assigned to summer reading camp and possibly retained if goals aren't met after camp. Kindergartners would receive developmental assessment within 60 days of entering school.
This bill will give us a chance to look at education from a different point of view, and that is not just keep putting money in, but let's see if we can change policy.
The bill calls for creating letter grades for entire schools, A's for the best performers, F's for flunking schools. Effective teachers could earn higher salaries, but underperforming teachers and principals could be dismissed. Democrats argue that children make greater gains in the pre-kindergarten programs, and this bill does not address pre-K in enough detail.
We are taking a look at the bill in its entirety, both in terms of its funding resources, where the money is coming from, how that will impact other programs that traditionally has get students ready for K through 12.
A lot of these kids who are very vulnerable will not get the preparatory information, will not get the developmental skills needed to help them to enter kindergarten ready. And that's going to mean that we're going to retain more.
Republicans hearing that argument cite Section 11 of the legislation, a section appropriating over $11 million for the North Carolina pre-K program. The bill's language says that would add nearly 2,300 new seats in pre-K. Now, the Senate carries a veto-proof Republican majority. You've got to deal with Tom Tillis and Paul Stam over in the House, and I hear the bathwater over there is a little lukewarm for this bill.
I don't deal much in the House, so we'll leave that to the people that deal with the House, and I don't predict what the House will or will not do. But I know for once we need to do something with education and move forward.
The bill needs a third and final Senate vote, which is scheduled for Monday night. A gaming compact to allow live dealer card games at the Cherokee Casino breezed through the Senate earlier this session. In the House, it's been a slower process. This week, members have raised questions about this proposed deal's effects beyond the public declaration that the gaming compact's about jobs and economic growth. The full House began debate late this week on the compact to allow live card games at the Cherokee Casino. Support and opposition is found on both sides of the political aisle. Democratic Representative Patsy Keever says gambling has been positive for the Cherokee Nation.
This is an economic engine for the far western part of the state. It provides jobs. It provides excellent education. It has improved the health 100% of the members of the tribe.
Republican Representative Roger West says most of the 400 potential new jobs created by this proposed gaming deal would benefit workers who are not Cherokee.
Those 400 jobs are going to be 80%, 82% filled by non-members of the tribe, meaning they will come off out of the surrounding counties out in the western end of the state.
The positive economic rhetoric is offset by concerns that a new gaming compact isn't solely about creating new jobs, but new casinos around Cherokee.
This is not about simply adding live gaming to the existing casino. This is about expansion. Now, if this were just about adding live gambling to the existing facility, I would have supported it.
Social conservatives argue the increased and enhanced gambling options would spell trouble.
I have the concerns that we've heard here today in reference to the social concerns, what we've seen in Las Vegas and other locations where vice does follow the gambling, and as we continue to increase what is being done here, there at the Cherokee Nation.
While a new gaming deal with the Cherokee is overwhelmingly popular in the state Senate, the House has withheld its final procedural vote on the bill until early next week. The chamber seems poised to offer amendments which will be considered before that third and final vote. Back to the Senate, where it began hearings on an oil and gas exploration bill. The proposal would establish rules for natural gas fracking and offshore oil drilling. It would establish guidelines for building the infrastructure needed to support an exploration industry. Senator Bob Rucho says that's what his bill's all about, introducing an energy component into North Carolina's economy.
Not only for what jobs may come from it, but more importantly, and a very key component, is providing an affordable and a sustainable source of energy so that our economy will move our economy, and more importantly, it'll create a competitive business environment so our businesses can not only stay here, but we can attract good quality business here.
Also extends to offshore drilling, and that raises a concern for me. It doesn't specifically address all the concerns that we have. So I'm sure this bill will be heard at least one more time in this committee before it goes to the floor.
Senate leaders say they will hear public feedback next week in committee. We will be there. The Comprehensive Energy Exploration Bill once contained a provision requiring new school buses and some state-owned trucks to run on compressed natural gas. The effort to launch a natural gas-powered state fleet will instead stand and be debated as its own piece of legislation. New school buses would burn natural gas as the old fleet of buses phases out. The Department of Transportation would be required to purchase the natural gas-burning versions of certain heavy-duty trucks. The Senate promises to discuss this bill more deeply early next week. The Senate has passed legislation reducing some state environmental regulations. The bill contains many components, but it clarifies that discharging waste into state waters would not include the release of air contaminants. The Commission for Public Health would receive the option, not the mandate, to adopt new rules for testing new water wells. It would also adjust the duration of permits for waste landfills.
If you go to the extent that a lot of folks want to go, the builder can't build, the developer can't develop, and the farmer cannot grow enough food for you to have for your consumption.
The bill heads to the House next. A bipartisan House committee supports giving lawmakers charge over how Dorothea Dix Hospital's property gets sold, and if sold, where the proceeds will go. A unanimous committee vote endorses supplanting the council estate in the real estate deal if one happens. There's a desire to slow this proposed sale and closure of Dorothea Dix. If the sale cannot be stopped, lawmakers want the money to back the Dorothea Dix mission.
I really want to keep it. I've stood by that the whole time. But since supposedly it's moved this far, I want to be sure that we have a right to say something, that the people have a right to say something, that just a few people have a right to say something, and that we make sure that money goes for where it was intended.
If down the road that land is sold, we want to make sure that any proceeds would go into the mental health system to support folks who need mental health services in their community.
The full House has scheduled debate for June 4th. We'll have a link to the House budget bill on our Facebook page this weekend. If you go online, visit facebook.com/legweek. We'll be tweeting some links as well via Twitter. Make sure you are following @NCN-Legweek. And video content will be posted at our webpage, unctv.org/legweek, and on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.